Mr. Bush here. So today we've reached the last part of our text on a page animation project. And what that is to add your code to Scratch, to the project to make it move. There's a couple of things you should have already finished. One, you should have already finished your sketch of what you want your project to look like. You should have already uploaded your PNGs to Scratch and separated them into the different layers that you want. And then those layers become the sprites in your code. You can check to see they look exactly like you want them to by clicking on the Costumes tab. I'm looking right here and I see that this looks exactly like I want it to. This one, if we zoom in a little bit or zoom out, and I can tell that it's transparent because it has these little the little checkerboard in the background. And last but not least, the third sprite looks like I want it to. The one other thing that's really important, it might be tempting to download these sprites as just the text, but it's going to be really important today to have the sprite be the whole slide. It's going to be actually a little bit easier to animate the way that we're doing it today. So make sure you don't download just the PNG of your slide. Make sure it's actually the whole slide, and you'll see why that's going to be important. If I go back to my Jamboard, I can show you exactly what I want to happen. And then I'll show you the code and how that actually works. I want this background, and remember I said it's actually the whole slide right here. I want this part to fade in from like a brown or a black. I want this logo right here to come next, and it's going to slide in from the left. And last but not least, this part right here, this kind of advertisement for my fictitious rally, it's going to slide up from the bottom. So this is the way that we're going, I can show you how it's going to work. So first, this background slide, when I click the flag, what it's going to do, each sprite is actually going to do something. And by the way, for those coders out there, this is called a parallel process. So when one event happens, three things happen simultaneously. Each of these sprites are going to hide. This first one, the ghost effect is going to be set to 100. So by the way, in the code, this looks like set color to effect, and then I changed it to be ghost. And then this sprite is going to be centered on the scratch plane, and that's going to be 0, 0. So right here in the scratch stage, it looks right in the middle. And then the logo that I've got right here, it's going to hide, and then it's going to go all the way to the left. So it's actually going to move itself all the way over here, at least the center of it. And then the last part, the advertisement for my fictitious rally is going to go down 180, and that's 180 pixels. Then when for this slide, what we're going to do is we're going to use a broadcast block. So what a broadcast block is, it's a way to make sprites pay attention to each other and to be able to talk to each other and give cues to other sprites so that then they know when it's their turn to execute their part of the code. This broadcast block actually stays within this first sprite. When it broadcasts message 1, it's going to show up, and then it's going to change the ghost effect by -4. It's going to gradually make that transparency go away, and then 25 times 4 is 100, so then it'll fully be on the screen after that 25 repeat loop. Then it's going to broadcast message 2. Then goes to the second sprite. That sprite is going to show up, and then it's going to glide from its position over here to the middle of the page. And by the way, that's where that whole slide being downloaded comes into play. So then that whole slide just centers itself onto the stage. Broadcast message 3 to the third sprite, and then when it receives message 3, it's going to show up and then kind of do the same thing, except glide from the bottom to the middle and be centered on the page. So that's basically what the code is. Here's how we're going to execute that. So what we're going to do, first thing I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to make a color on the backdrop. And the way that I do that is I'm just going to make a big, and then I'm just going to change that color to be kind of a brown. And by the way, this square right here, this is what will show up on the page. Next, I'm going to go to my next sprite, and I'm going to code what I want to happen. Now these ghost effect blocks, there's actually a lot of different types of animations that you can make. This is the one that I'm going to choose. Next, we're going to animate this one. Last but not least, I'm going to animate the last one. And then it should work. So if you feel that you want to go beyond this a little bit, there's a lot of different things that you can do to make your project a little more complex. I've already created one example of this project right here. First off, I've actually added a lot more sprites to my project. So I've got a lot of different costumes. You'll notice that I've separated the words into a lot of different variations. And then what I've also done is I've added a start button to my project. So my project will actually work without the flag. It works with the press of the start button. So this is another example of what you can also do with your project. Okay, I'll run that one more time. And you'll notice that this is pretty much the same as the other project that I made, but what I've done is I've separated each individual word and animated it independently. Another thing that I've done is I've started to experiment with variables. Variables are a great way to change multiple aspects of your project when you're trying to tinker and get the animations exactly like you want. So one right here is I've got the glide effect that I was playing around with. And each of these slides, what I've done then is taken that variable, glide effect, glide one, and I've put it into this right here. And that allows me to experiment with the different speed. So if I want to change the speed, what I do is I go right here and I just change this glide effect. And then when I click the flag, it sets that variable for each place where it comes up. And you'll notice that this just goes a little slower. And then if I want to change it back or change it to be just a little faster, it changes it right there. I've also played around with the ghost effect as well. So this allows me to change this variable right here. This is the only place where that one comes up, but it allows me to tinker with it without having to go and change to each individual sprite. So again, variables, those are a really great way to start experimenting. Change it back to the one that I wanted, and it's all set. All right. So your project, you don't necessarily have to stick to the same animations that I did. I'd like you to try to experiment with different effects. Those are right here. Color, fisheye, brightness is also another one, and ghost. Ghost is kind of my favorite. One thing that you could do is you could animate the color afterwards. But again, using those broadcast blocks and using variables is a great way to experiment and try to dial in your project is best so that it's the best that it can be. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Have a great day.